Dugald Stewart FRSE FRS was a Scottish philosopher and mathematician. He is best known for popularizing the Scottish Enlightenment, for his lectures at the University of Edinburgh were widely disseminated by his many influential students. Early life. He was the son of Matthew Stewart, professor of mathematics at the University of Edinburgh, and was born in Edinburgh. He was educated at the Royal High School and the University of Edinburgh, where he read mathematics and moral philosophy under Adam Ferguson. In 1771, in the hope of gaining a Snell exhibition and proceeding to Oxford to study for the English Church, he went to the University of Glasgow to attend the classes of Thomas Reid. To Reid he later owed his theory of morality. In Glasgow, Stewart boarded in the same house as Archibald Alison, author of the essay on taste, and a lasting friendship sprang up between them. After a single session in Glasgow, at the age of 19, Dugald was asked by his father, whose health was beginning to fail, to give his mathematical classes in the University of Edinburgh. After 3 years, Dugald was elected Professor of Mathematics in conjunction with his father in 1775. 3 years later, Ferguson was appointed secretary to the commissioners sent out to the American colonies, and at his request Stewart lectured as his substitute during the session 1778 to 1779, delivering an original course of lectures on morals. In his early years he was influenced by Lord Monboddo, with whom he corresponded. Professor at Edinburgh. In 1785 Stewart succeeded Ferguson in the chair of moral philosophy, which he filled for 25 years, making it a centre of intellectual and moral influence. Young men were attracted by his reputation from England, Europe and America. Stewart's course on moral philosophy embraced, besides ethics proper, lectures on political philosophy of the theory of government. Stewart spent the summers of 1788 and 1789 in France, where he met Swart-Dengerando and Raynal, and came to sympathize with the revolutionary movement. His political teaching, after the French Revolution, drew suspicion on him. From 1800 to 1801, Stewart gave lectures to undergraduate students on the subject of political economy, the first person to do so. Later life. In 1806, Stewart received in lieu of a pension the nominal office of the writership of the Edinburgh Gazette, with a salary of £300. When he ceased lecturing during the session of 1809 to 1810, his place was taken, at his own request, by Thomas Brown, who in 1810 was appointed conjoint professor. On the death of Brown in 1820, Stewart retired altogether from the professorship. His successor was John Wilson, known as Christopher North. From 1809 onwards, Stewart lived mainly at Kinneil House, Bowness, which was placed at his disposal by the Duke of Hamilton. In June 1814 he was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society. He was elected a foreign honorary member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 1817. In 1822, he was struck with paralysis, but recovered a fair degree of health, sufficient to enable him to resume his studies. He died in Edinburgh, where he was buried in Canongate Churchyard. Additionally, and of greater public note, a monument to his memory was erected on Calton Hill. His memory is also honoured by the newly constructed Dugald Stewart Building at the University of Edinburgh on Charles Street. Works. Stewart as a student in Glasgow wrote an essay on dreaming. In 1792 he published the first volume of The Elements of the Philosophy of the Human Mind. The second volume appeared in 1814, the third not till 1827. In 1793 he printed a textbook, Outlines of Moral Philosophy, which went through many editions, and in the same year he read before the Royal Society of Edinburgh his account of the life and writings of Adam. Smith. Similar memoirs of Robertson the historian and of Reid were afterwards read before the same body and appear in his published works. In 1805 Stewart published pamphlets defending John Leslie against the charges of unorthodoxy made by the Presbytery of Edinburgh. In 1810 appeared the Philosophical Essays. In 1814 the second volume of the Elements. In 1811 the first part, and in 1821 the second part of the dissertation written for the Encyclopaedia Britannica supplement, entitled A General View of the Progress of Metaphysical, Ethical, and Political Philosophy Since the Revival of Letters. Quote, in 1827 he published the third volume of the Elements, and in 1828, a few weeks before his death, The Philosophy of the Active and Moral Powers. Stewart's works were edited in 11 vols. by Sir William Hamilton and completed with a memoir by John Veitch. Influence. Among Stewart's pupils were Lord Palmerston, Sir Walter Scott, Francis Jeffrey, Henry Thomas Cockburn, Francis Horner, Sidney Smith, John William Ward, Lord Brim, Dr. Thomas Brown, James Mill, Sir James Mackintosh and Sir Archibald Allison. His reputation rested as much on his eloquence, populism, and style as on original work. He was principally responsible for making the Scottish philosophy predominant in early 19th-century Europe. In the second half of the century, Stewart's reputation fell to that of a follower of the work of Thomas Reid. Stewart upheld Reid's psychological method and expanded the Scottish common-sense realism, which was attacked by James Mill and John Stuart Mill. Part of his originality lay in his incorporation of elements of moderate empiricism and the French ideologists Laroche-Miguier, Cabanis and de Stud de Tracy. He opposed the argument of ontology and Condylic sensationalism. Immanuel Kant, he said, he could not understand. Family. In 1783 Stewart married Helen Bannatyne, who died in 1787, leaving an only son, Colonel Matthew Stewart. In 1790 he married Helen Darcy Cranston, sister of George Cranston. His second wife was well-born and accomplished, and he was in the habit of submitting to her criticism whatever he wrote. They had a son and a daughter. The son's death in 1809 brought about his retirement from the active duties of his chair.